Okay. I guess we should officially call the meeting to order. And then first thing, consent agenda. Did everybody have a chance to take a look at the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes,
Any questions or issues there?
I move we accept them.
You have a second?
Second.
I second.
Who was
Alright.
that? I can't see you all and take minutes at the same time. Who seconded it?
I said it and somebody else did. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It's
Who is
Mark.
I?
Mark.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, all in favor?
I,
All right, so minutes are accepted. Any agenda changes? That's what we're looking at here.
do you
Okay.
have the train letter on there or do you need it?
The train letter, I don't have it. Do we
Add
need
that
it?
to new business?
Yeah, do we need it? We,
Are we gonna vote on it now?
I,
come on.
I would think we should. But that's just me,
I agree because it gets it into part of our meeting minutes.
right?
Okay.
Put it as H.
Yep.
I move we accept the agenda changes.
I'll second it.
Can you just say instead of I as to who that is?
Gene seconds
That's
it.
what I thought. That's who I thought it was.
Vote to accept the agenda changes. All in favor?
I,
Okay. All right. Motion carries. Does anybody have any remarks? Anything you want to say outside of the agenda? Anything you bring up?
I want to congratulate everybody who was involved with the film festival. I had serious doubts. You proved me wrong. That's wonderful. And thanks for all the behind the scenes work and support you got from Upriver and everybody. And the films were way better than the film festivals I've seen before. And maybe that was the IF3. It's a great job.
Cool. I agree. Everybody did a great job there. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks to everybody. All the volunteers did a fantastic job as well. That was great.
Hey, Chris, do
Yeah.
you have an accounting yet?
Yep, I'll go over that later. I've got it on the agenda for later.
Okay,
So,
Karen, Karen, I think I'd like you to mention here that we have 2 applicants for the CTU fly fishing camp.
I didn't know if that was on there. Yes, actually, there are 3 students from Leadville, all female, who have been accepted to go to the CTU Youth Fly Fishing and Conservation Camp. We are sponsoring 2 of them. One of them is being sponsored by another chapter, and I can't remember who. I have it in notes, and I saw Chris already reached out to one of the young women who had let us know that she was accepted, so that's awesome. So I would suggest for your thought going forward, sometime in the fall, we have a chapter meeting in Leadville. And let them come and get some more Leadville involvement.
I think that's a fabulous idea.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, given I live kind of toward the Chaffee Lake County boundary and I've been here now 3 years, I'm kind of amazed there isn't more kind of engagement between Salina and Buena Vista. You know, there's quite a bit, just kind of depends, but as well as including Leadville, because there are, yeah, since that is kind of part of our territory, I think it's a great idea.
Where's my Zoom thing?
definitely-
And I can check with Mark Cole and make sure, he's our former chapter president who lives in Leadville, but he's not there all the time. as to when he might be there, and he would be a good catalyst to, get some folks there, and Colin from the Lake County Schools. And because Mark teaches the CMC guide program there. And we do have members in Leadville. So it's something we can kind of work on over this summer, maybe, if other people think that's a good idea.
I like that idea. Maybe we look at moving that September meeting to Leadville.
Well, September, no, that wouldn't be a good one because Chris Dirkson's coming to Salida, right? Or
that we're doing
BV.
that.
The Stardust.
Coming to BV.
Okay. Well, that's the only one we got other than the year in review. So we got May, September, November. So,
And winter, well, maybe we'll have maybe we can do one of our board meetings up there, invite people to come along with the girls.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, let's talk about it over the
Okay.
next couple of months. Okay, well, that brings up, did anybody else have any remarks? Anything else to talk about outside of the regular agenda? Take that as a no. Okay, so upcoming meetings, that kind of segues in here. So May 10th, so Karen, when I was just logging in, you
Yes.
guys were talking about this. We are confirmed for the community center for that.
We are confirmed. I have the contract. The process to do it online for the community center is very cumbersome, and they don't have a little box you can check for nonprofit when they adjust the rate. They just give you a refund, and they like us to have a credit card, which we don't have.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Pam's going to bring me 2 checks tomorrow, and I will take them to Annie at the community center. I think it's $40 for the room and $100 security, and hopefully they just don't cash the $100 and return it to us. But yes, and I emailed Stuart about whether he needs an Apple, if he's using an Apple or a PC, and we can take care of that. At our fly gals fly tying last night, Kim said she went to the Fly Gals opening, and I thought Barbara was on this call.
Yeah, I
there you
am,
are. Okay.
I am,
Where
Karen,
he did High Lakes presentation, is that right?
yes.
Correct, yeah.
And so he was going to decide whether he was going to do High Lakes or Chironomids or something else. So I asked him today in an email to write a little short description of what he might discuss and send it to Tom Arnott before April 23rd.
Okay, perfect.
His presentation last year was very good, but it was High Lakes.
It was at the TU meeting?
No, he did it. It was one of our last in-person meetings before COVID is he presented there. And it would have been like March of 2020 before everything shut down. But I remember we were there and we were kind of joking about not shaking hands. And then that was one of the last activities we did, but that was a High Lakes presentation, but
Was that the one at the boathouse?
Yes, and that's been since 2020, so.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember one in BV at SDCA. He gave a presentation there. Stuart did, didn't he?
Where?
At SDC, at the,
Yeah,
Great
St. George
Cristo.
Cristo. I don't remember that one, but
I don't
All
either.
right. I stand corrected. Don't dwell on it.
No, he was there. He did a small streams.
Got it. Yeah, I missed that one, I
Stuart
think.
did?
Now, that was Chris Dirksen.
That was Chris
Oh,
Dirksen
Chris, okay.
in South Park.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to.
No, this is Stuart Andrews,
Oh, okay.
Mark Englers.
Stuart did do a presentation at.
Stuart's
Sango
talk
de
will be
Christi.
good no matter what he does.
He did a presentation at Sango de Christi about casting into the wind. And we went outside and practiced how to cast into the wind.
I think that was Fly Gals.
No, it was,
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, he's gonna do something awesome on May 10th. And so then we got Chris Dirksen again, September, and we're confirmed with the Stardust.
Correct. And
Okay.
has Tom ever sent you anything about a deposit?
Not to me, no.
Okay,
I've not
Um,
heard anything either.
okay, I'll check with them.
Cool. And then we got November 9th, you're interviewed at the Punch Town Hall again, and that is a Thursday, correct? Because they were booked on Wednesday. So we booked it for
Correct.
Thursday. Yeah, okay. So then other possible upcoming, Dave, I know you were talking with Arc Anglers about teaming up with them for the Tightline nymphing. Is there anything new to talk about there?
Not a whole lot from Arc Anglers. I'm waiting to hear back. A friend of mine, I've tried to convince him to help me teach this. My thinking is keep it pretty small, just to TU members at first. If we're going to be on the water, I think it'd just be difficult to have more than a few people per instructor, and I can't imagine more than 2 instructors. Yeah. So sometime in the next month or two, I was feeling a little burnt out, but I'm trying to motivate again to do more with this. And at first I was thinking maybe we'd have a really small fee just to help cover some of the expenses with flies and leader material, but sounds like that could get into trouble if you're charging for on water fishing. That'd be considered
Oh,
like
commercial.
Yeah, so we could just have just recommend a contribution or something. And we didn't spend, I tried to spend as little money as possible for the fly tying events. So maybe we can dip into that budget for this class.
Or we could ask one of the fly shops to be a co-sponsor who has a commercial permit.
Yeah, I mean, if we're not charging for that, then it doesn't matter in terms of a permit.
Yeah.
So I would just keep it that way. Maybe we have half a dozen people, spots for people to sign up. Again, I would reserve that for TU members first, and go from there.
So Kim, you might address this. Since you're doing a casting class through CMC, is that something we might want to do through CMC as a collaborator?
I don't have a clear answer for that today. I'm still sorting out my class this week. We're just casting on the grass at CMC, the building there, the Kesner building. We're still figuring out the second part. Daniel used to teach the class, who's one of our guides from Arc Anglers, who's now moved and opened up this really cool place up in Wisconsin. But right now, because there's been a shift, and I think CMC really doesn't have that licensing and those permits either. So probably leaning into Arc Anglers to cover that if that works. And we're getting kind of a shift in things and making sure that will work. So CMC doesn't really, they're not the right match for that either necessarily. So yeah, we're figuring it out, but we'll see.
So I would have 2 comments there, I guess. One is that I would like to keep it free if at all possible. And I think we have money that we can do that with, either unused money from the fly tying stuff or some of the funds that we just got from the film fest potentially. So I would prefer to keep it that way. And in terms of whoever we want to do, I'd defer to you for that. The other thing was, if you're feeling burned out, then let's, don't try to do too much.
I think it'll be fine.
You've done a lot with the tying classes and helping out with the film fest and everything. So obviously we got runoff coming up here soon, which isn't the ideal time to be teaching or have people on the water. So maybe we wait until after runoff for it. And so, but again, I'll let you decide, but don't feel like you have to do too much here. So
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
okay. Well,
Thanks,
keep us
Dave.
posted on how we can help. So okay, next thing, brewpub socials. I know those were a big hit last year. We haven't really talked about them other than that we all agree we should do it again, but it would be great to have some people step up and volunteer to schedule those. Brian was good enough to get us on the Moonlight Mondays calendar before all those spots filled up. So we're doing that October 9th. But the other ones, we want to do one, maybe two in Salida, one, maybe two in BV. We'd love to have somebody or somebody's step up and do those. Rick isn't here to defend himself, but I know he was involved in organizing those last year and has offered to help us in general with stuff over the summer. So maybe we can recruit him to work on that with somebody else. But
I'm happy to reach out to Melissa at the tap room at the Eddy line
Okay.
again, if you want. I would just need strictures in terms of what kind of budget, we have. I mean, last year, I don't think it cost us anything. I think they've supplied pizza and salad and, everybody just bought their own beer, but
yeah, we'd have to look back at the to see
I'm
what
pretty sure that's what happened.
that's kind of what I remember too, but I was just coming in at that point, so I don't remember really well what was
Right.
going on. So
That sounds right, Karen. They also provided some swag.
Right. And would June be a good month? I mean, I'm going to be gone the whole month of May, but in first couple weeks of June, because nobody's hardly going to be fishing here.
we don't need to plan it tonight. I just wanted to see if I could
Okay,
get some.
except I'm
some
going to
peop-
be leaving in 2 weeks. I'd like to
Okay.
put a bug in her ear.
Okay, well, maybe we do that one later in the summer and we do Salida earlier or something.
Well,
so-
we already have Moonlight for October.
Yeah.
Well, and I know last year, and I think it was at the Eddy Line event, we talked about maybe doing either River Runners or the other, I'm gonna not remember the name of the other.
Independent Whitewater.
Yeah, that has their kind of riverside bar. That was the other thing we talked about, is maybe
Oh,
one of those would
or,
be a fun. What I can't I can picture it. I know, right? It's right there at Big
I
Bend.
know. In Nathrop. That has
Yeah.
the Bronze Canyon Brewery. God, Karen, come on.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But we talked about maybe doing one of those just because it's right on the river and might be
Right.
fun. But our summer only location. So that was the other
Correct.
place to look into, places.
Brandon Slate is the owner and Rocky Mountain Outdoor Center. Jesus. Yeah, that's who it is. I could reach out to him too, if you guys have a date. My guess is, again, June was probably their less busy time, or the last 2 weeks of August. Which I don't know if I'm here, but
June gonna be really busy with rafting though, with
Early
runoff?
June, early June's
June will be.
okay.
Okay,
But I think that's their season, right? So I think that would be.
Yeah, they're in season. The
Yeah.
thing about, if you're looking like Kim was mentioning on the river, River Runners is, their situation's right on the water, and so is iDubbbz.
Yeah.
Brandon's is not. It's up
right.
closer
Well,
to
yeah.
the road.
Bobby, do you want to check with those guys since you know?
I can, I'm sure that they would do whatever.
Okay,
At that time of the year, it's just, what are the parameters? What are they being asked to do?
I think
Invite us
that-
to come hang out. I think
Yeah.
it's pretty, like, we didn't have any sort of formal program or anything. It was just a get together,
We
really.
just host it and
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we buy food and beer and hang out, but we just have a place.
pretty much.
pretty much.
Much, yeah.
Well, I think
I think-
everybody's open for that, especially. in
Right.
June.
They
wanna
could
bring
provide
people-
T-shirts or swag or
Yeah, if they, yeah,
some
Right.
we wouldn't turn it down. Yeah.
gift certificates. I mean, like I said, Eddy Line provided pizza and salad last year, I think.
Mhm.
That's a
We just
lot.
bought the beer.
So is Brian.
And so, everybody bought our stuff at Moonlight. He gave us swag and
He gave us
some
swag.
gift
Yep.
certificates, I think, right, Brian?
Is
Okay.
Brian on?
He
Hey,
was.
sorry, I'm in.
Multitasking?
Yeah, we did just donate the swag.
Okay.
Do you guys have a preference? I could reach out to those guys. I'd be happy to do that for first 2 weeks of June sometime.
Well, if we're gonna do something at Eddy Line, maybe one of them that's closer to Salida.
Well,
'Cause-
River Runners and IW are closer to Salida.
Yeah, and they're both, I mean, they're
Let's
both
go
about
with
halfway.
River Runners
I don't-
first and then IW, because River Runners has really good margaritas and fish tacos.
Yes, and I do like I mean, they've just got a nice setup down there.
Yeah,
They're good.
I'll talk to Travis. I'll see him next week.
perfect.
All right, so Bob and Karen, you guys are gonna kind of head that up.
Sure.
And,
Bobby
um,
is.
I'll head it
okay.
up.
And then if you guys want to try to lasso Rick Helmick in, I'm sure he'd be happy to help you too.
Yeah.
I'm going to volunteer his
I
service.
don't think there's much to it. You just designate a date
Yeah.
and put it
Yeah.
out, right?
Pretty
Right.
much, yeah.
Make sure there's not we just want to make sure there's not an event going or a big
Correct.
group that they have on site on that
And
day.
it could be a
is it weekend or
weekday.
weekday matter?
Yeah,
It could be weekday,
weekday
Weekdays, fine.
after work time.
Yeah.
6 o'clock.
Sure.
We did it earlier. But
It's
Well,
just,
we
started
it's a whenever you show up. I mean, we say, we're going to start at whatever, but you don't have to be there at any given
Right.
time. It's just sort of
4:30.
an open house
What do you
sort of
think?
thing.
4:30.
5.
Sounds like the Blue Plate special.
I say 5, 4:30
5.
sounds right.
Yeah.
5, so Dave can get there at 5:30.
Okay,
Okay, thanks, Bobby.
you bet.
Hey, Chris,
Yeah.
I apologize. You said are there any agenda items? I didn't think of it now, but under upcoming events, we have our big online raffle, which has been set up now through the indescribable amount of help that David Nickham provided. We were kicking this around how to do it for weeks and weeks. He sent me the Salsa webpage, so it's all organized. We can start the raffle advertising May 1st, and the draw date is May 22nd, which is a Monday. Tickets are 1 for $40, 3 for $100, 450 tickets sold.
What's the date? 5:20 is the drawing? 5:21?
5/22, Monday,
5/22.
5/22.
5:22.
Yeah, and we'll start advertising on the 1st of May.
Great. I totally forgot about that.
Cool.
Keith,
That's
are you going to send something for the newsletter, our May newsletter?
Gee, I should. Yeah, I guess I will.
Good idea.
If Tom is not, if I'm not too far behind, I'll do it tomorrow.
Yeah. And I think Chris has seen some of the stuff that I got donated from some other people, a rod and a couple of river bags. I got a kayak throw bag at the film festival that I won't use. Couple other things. And I was going to put them on eBay, but if you have any use for them if you think it would add value to the raffle this year or next year, if we do another film festival, I'm happy to hold on to them.
My experience and opinion is that those small items or extraneous items don't add much. This raffle is 5 float trips with local guys and then spin or fall up on the green. So there's no rods, reels, bows and arrows. It's just 5 trips. If you buy a
Okay.
ticket, you're going to get a trip, and you win, you'll get a trip. You won't have to worry about getting a sculpture or a book that nobody really wants. 5 trips.
Awesome.
Karen, I would say hold on to that stuff. We may have other things come up where we could use them.
Okay.
Yeah, and Tom Palco still does.
I know. I've been working with Tom a little bit on it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Could potentially be giveaways at the socials.
there you
Could be.
go.
Draw people in with some good stuff like that. So, okay. So, are we ready to move on to new business? I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
So, first item I want to go through here is we've got some new information about And as soon as I find it here it is. All right, are you guys seeing this privileged and confidential memorandum?
Yes,
Okay, so this is new information that we've gotten about the National TU scholarship policy. We've been getting a bunch of different conflicting information, and so we've had kind of held off on publishing our scholarship. This I got from Beverly Smith, who is the volunteer coordinator for National TU. This came from an outside counsel who was hired specifically to look at this, and this comes from a year ago, as opposed to the other stuff we were looking at was from like 10, 15 years ago. So this is current, was put together by someone who is expert in this section of law. So I feel very good about it. And long story short, this to me tells me that what we have in our scholarship offering that we kind of put together and approved to that new letter is fine. And I think that we can go ahead. And the key is this section right here. This is basically what we have to worry about in order to stay within the 501c3 rules and not get in trouble with tax exempt status with the IRS. So basically it has to be, the selection process has to be objective and non-discriminatory. Doesn't benefit an individual selected by a donor or an interested person. So no nepotism, basically. Achieves a specific objective, improves or enhances literary, artistic, scientific teaching. So that in addition, basically we can't give scholarships to ourselves or children.
I don't read it that way, Chris. Children of
don't?
the selection committee, not members in general.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what I
that's
read.
fine. Okay. Yep, I got you there. So essentially what we have, and that can be, that's again, an internal thing. If it ever comes up that a board member wants to have their kid apply, that'll be something we'll discuss on a case by case basis at the time, have that person recuse themselves and
Yeah.
obviously be incredibly diligent about making sure that we're being impartial and fair in that selection. But essentially, I think this tells us that we're fine to move forward with offering our scholarships as we've got it set up now with the latest letter.
Yeah, the only thing I read that differently, Karen. I actually read relatives of not just selection committee, but also officers, directors, trustees, foundation managers,
Where are you?
board members of the selection committee. I think we should probably, I think we should be pretty careful on that and that, so we don't inadvertently trip it. I'm not sure how to interpret.
Okay, I got you. So officers, directors,
Yeah, like all relatives of any of those categories. That's how I interpreted it, but I could see
Okay.
how you interpreted it.
yeah, I could see that.
I'm not sure. I think we should just make sure we know for certain in case there is a potential conflict in the future that we don't perceive as that we manage it so it's not a conflict, but technically within the letter of, or within the intention of this guidance, it would be perceived as a conflict.
Gotcha, Mark. But a general member who is not one of those things.
Well, that should be okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool.
Fine. So does anybody else have any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions?
I haven't read the last scholarship policy and maybe Barbara or Dave can enlighten me. Did we put actual dates for the applications and stuff in that policy? And if so, that probably, I don't know if that would be acceptable going forward because it's probably too late if it's a May 1st deadline.
I honestly don't remember what the very last version, whether we got rid of the dates or not.
The dates are in the policy. It says deadline for applications. It says applications must be received by May 1st. And the award decision will be announced by May 15th.
So based on our delays here,
Maybe we can change that to dates determined by the scholarship committee. And we could adjust it, say, for this year and then go forward for those May 1st and winter
if
dates or something.
if this is going to be the advertisement letter that we send out, it needs to have a deadline, an application deadline on it. So we would need to decide that.
Could we say that for 2023, those dates may be waived?
So that would
Yeah, or
basically
you
give
just make the
people,
policy and then you just adjust the dates for this letter for 2023.
yeah, I think we can just adjust the dates for 2023 and then come back and adjust them again for 2024 back to where we want them. But if we do that, what should we put the dates as for 2023?
May 15th. I mean, kids are going to be probably close to being out of school by then.
If we do May 15th, that's less than a month from now. Is that enough time for
Not really.
for them to? We're not asking for, we're asking for an essay, right? And transcripts and a letter
I
from
think
a
it's really-
professor. So trying to get all that together
Too
during
soon.
finals is going to be tough.
What about June 1st?
That would give them a chance to do it after finals. And we may not get a lot of
I was gonna
a
say,
lot
it
of
might be
hits this year.
tight, it might just be tight this year. And we either just don't get a lot of applicants or any applicants and kind of expect that and
Yeah.
just added
Right.
a fall
And then
option. Yeah.
And
Can
then
we
we're-
put
we're
the
more prepared for
June,
next
can we
year.
put this?
Yeah.
The fall, can we put both dates in there at once?
There
So
isn't both dates, Karen.
Pardon me?
We're only offering scholarships for the academic year, assuming that the fall semester is successful, then they will be funded for the spring. We don't have a fall and spring application any longer.
Okay,
Wanted to hear the
I'd say
Yeah.
not waste a lot of time on it. Put a reasonable date. The people who are interested might get it. And then if we don't get anybody, maybe we do a, October, November advertisement for a winter semester.
decided we're only going to do a once a year, but I feel okay with that. So I guess we have two things to decide here. One would be overall, are we all in agreement that we're comfortable with going ahead with advertising this? So we need to vote on that. And then, but after that, we'll kind of make a decision on dates. So somebody want to do a motion to approve advertising, to go ahead and approving advertising the scholarships?
Motion to send notification for these scholarships.
Okay.
In a second.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Who moved it? I'm sorry.
Dave Belmont.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Ken.
That's all right.
Thank you.
And Kim Letourneau seconded.
Got it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. So we will go ahead with publicizing and offering the scholarships. And then the second item would be adjusting the dates for 2023. And we can either continue discussing and decide those dates now, or I think it would be okay if we deferred making that dates decision to the scholarship committee, let them decide those dates and adjust them and send them out. Do you guys think that would be an okay thing to do?
I do.
I'm
I
okay with
do.
that, yeah.
Okay,
When-
so
When you guys
sorry.
say publish it, what do you mean? I see advertisements in the Mountain Mail all the time saying scholarship money available, apply here. Do we ever do that, or is it just our website?
Keith, that is for senior scholarships for high school graduating seniors. That's what those scholarships are usually for, not for kids in college completing their first year.
We were planning on reaching out to schools in Colorado, to the biology departments to make sure that they're aware of their of the scholarship.
Okay,
Okay, I make a motion that we allow the scholarship committee to establish the dates in our offering
For
for a
2020.
second,
for 2023.
So that's Pam motion, Keith seconded. All in
Correct.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. Okay, so scholarship is dialed in
Chris,
mostly, yes.
as Dave mentioned, the scholarship committee is wanting to reach out to specific faculty members in specific programs that have offerings that are consistent with the TU mission. And towards that end, I know Jean Milos had a name of someone at Western. I think, Chris, you had a professor that you thought would be appropriate for us to reach out to. I would appreciate if you have someone you think we should specifically reach out to, if you could let me know, because I want to hit the ground running now that we have this approval, so that we can hopefully contact these programs fairly soon.
Got a couple that I'll send to you. I sent you something a while back,
Right.
but I may have some, I can find that and send it over again, or I can, I'll dig through and see. Yeah, there are a couple of engineering professors, and then potentially one or two at CSU in the natural resources, fisheries biology.
And Jean,
areas,
could you
so.
give me the name of that person that you felt was particularly appropriate at Western?
I'll have to look on the website again, but okay, I'll send it to you.
Because you had a particular person that looked really strong. So yeah, good. Any contact information you can provide would be very much appreciated.
Okay, so thank you, Barbara, for coming.
Okay, thanks
and,
everyone.
contributing to the discussion. You're welcome to hang around if you want, but we're gonna move on to other stuff now, I think so.
Okay, bye.
All right, take care. Okay, next item.
Hey, wait, Chris.
Yeah, yep,
Barbara, did you leave yet?
I believe she did.
She's gone, yeah.
All right, Kim can probably do it. Okay.
Okay, so next item here is Sean Shepherd at the last chapter meeting talked about changing some regulations on the Upper Arkansas, and asked us to give a letter of support for that change. And just a little background for those of you that couldn't make it to that meeting. Basically, there are two special regulation areas. One is in Hayden Meadows, where it's flies and lures only, and I think it's one fish over 12 inches, I believe. keep. It's not catch and release, but it's not the same as the general Colorado.
Yeah, it's a slot limit. I don't have my book with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and then the other is down, it's down like right by Badger Creek, isn't it? It's down in the canyon down south of downstream of Salida. And it's an area where it's catch and release only for rainbows, I believe. And essentially what they want to do is eliminate those two special regulation areas. So it would be uniform regulations across basically the entire Arkansas River. And the reason for that is that they're not seeing that those regulations are having any effect, good or bad. They're not seeing any particular change in population dynamics inside or outside of those areas, which means that they're not really having any sort of biological effect. So they want to eliminate those just to simplify the rules, both for anglers to understand and for them to enforce. So it would basically make the entire Arkansas River stretch would be just basic Colorado bag limit. So 2 fish, flies, lures, bait, I think whatever is allowed. But a 2 fish limit, it would be the same as everywhere else. So I crafted a letter. I sent it out to you guys a while back. And we basically just need to discuss that. I think the people who are at the meeting have a pretty good understanding of that from Sean's discussion. Those of you that weren't there, or those of you that were, if you have any questions or concerns about it, let's talk about it and make sure everybody is comfortable with this.
Is it a 2 fish limit or a 4 fish limit?
I think it's 4
Is it 4? Okay.
bag limits. Aren't they 4?
Mhm.
Honestly, I don't know. I never keep it.
I was gonna say, I don't ever
I don't
keep
pay attention. So it's whatever, just the general, there would be no special regulators. Whatever the general Colorado bag limit is on every other stream, it would be the same as that. And which it is on almost everywhere else on the Arkansas, except for these 2 areas.
Just an FYI, I was at Rincon Boat Ramp 2 days ago and saw a guy spin fishing, and he caught a couple fish, but he threw them back.
Yeah.
So, there is bait fishing.
Yeah,
I think it's no problem.
I'd obviously defer to the experts and the biologists, so I'm not opposed, but I do confess just I mean, personally, I hate to see a step away from encouraging artificial only, or, flies and lures only. So it just doesn't sit well, I guess, just being honest on like a personal level, but I can see the rationale for wanting to eliminate the 2 restrictions, because it does create complexity. It makes it more uniform, it simplifies, and according to them, it's, not going to have any impact on the trout populations. But I as a matter of principle, I have to confess, I do struggle with approving something that moves away from encouraging artificial only fishing.
That does not prevent us from putting up our posters, encouraging people to crimp their bars and do catch and release only at access sites. I don't think.
I think
Yes.
that brings us to the point, Karen, of my question would be to those guys is like, do they need this endorsement? Are they in a struggle internally to get this passed? It doesn't seem like it's that difficult of a thing for them to just do. Obviously, the science is there. I know fishing here over 40 years, you could see the change in people's attitudes on this river, even though we have, 50 times more people fishing. They're not fishing with bait, and they're hardly ever keeping fish. So do they really need our endorsement to do this? I mean, that's my first question, I guess.
I would say with the Wildlife Commission, which tends to be a little bit anti-regulation, I think that it would help them. And, less regulation, simplification, easier on the staff officers. I don't think it's going to really hurt us, because I think it's just making it simple for everybody, because I bet you everybody here started with a worm or a
Yeah.
lure.
Bob, I was
it-
at that meeting and what I took away from it was they're asking our support since we're so familiar with the river,
Mhm.
and it can't hurt their cause to get our endorsement for a policy change. That shows they reached out to the angling community locally. And since we're that large organization with a brand name recognition, I think it's just a gesture of support.
Hmm.
Do they need our support?
No.
No, but they asked for it. So I'm in support of the letter.
I agree, Pam. And from a youth education standpoint, CPW supports us all the time. I mean, the upcoming fishing derby, they're going to provide all the rods for free. I just think, turnabout is fair play. They support us tremendously, and whether they need it or not, I think we should show some support. And I like Chris's well-crafted letter.
Gene?
I move we send the letter.
I'll second. Keith seconds.
Yeah, Gene.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. So I'll go ahead and send that to Sean in the morning.
Hey, Chris, along the lines of that meeting, I was at that meeting as well. And with this, it doesn't bother me to send this letter of support or this regulation change. But I do have a concern about the cutthroat situation that they're looking at doing up in that lake, that high lake where they want to kill a bunch of cutthroat to put in some other cutthroat.
But like,
Yeah, what lake is that?
I don't know if it's Hunt or Hunts with an S, but it's above
Hunt.
Boss
Oh,
Lake.
it's Hunt, because I was confused because I look at Hunt Peak and there's another Hunt Lake down here in the Sangres.
Got it.
It was in the collegiate peaks, and I'm opposed to that. I just don't see that as a good thing to do. To go after one lake, one species in that place, and then turn around and support a non-native fishery like the Arkansas, both with non-native brown and rainbow trout, and then turn around and kill cutthroat just because they're not the right species. I don't get that. I'm not in favor of that one.
I
Well,
don't think that
they're
has to
look-
do with this letter, though.
They're looking.
It has
for a
nothing to do with
home
this
for
letter,
those
right?
fish.
The letter passed. I was moving
Right.
on. I'm past the letter. I just don't think you should kill fish to put another fish in. I think that's not right.
Was that the ones that they're looking at killing? Were those the erroneous greenbacks from
Generic
back in the day?
greenbacks for quote.
Generic, yeah.
So they're.
I agree with you, Bobby.
That was kind of a mistake, and now they're trying to correct it with a true native species. Is that the deal?
Right.
I don't
I don't
believe
know.
it. Just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. Well, next time I see Alex, I'll tell him you're mad at him.
Well, I tell him that too.
So, okay, so let's move on here to the next thing. Let me find this. So in the interest of simplifying the committees, we've got something like 18 committees, which is an awful lot of committees.
Ah.
We have a couple that are kind of duplicates, which I think it would be nice to simplify things by combining them. We have the projects committee and we have a special projects committee, which the special projects committee, I believe, was created when the ELC project started to kind of focus on that. But that's kind of become the main project for the chapter in terms of conservation projects. And if you look at the members, they're almost the same people. So Pam is on the projects committee. Jim McGannon is on the special projects committee. the rest of the members are the same. So I think it makes sense to combine those two committees. And we'll just have a projects committee. I don't think we have so many projects going on that it's needs to be split out. In a similar way, we have the community involvement committee, which is basically the 2 fishing derbies. And then we have a special events committee, which is has been doing things like the Fly Fishing Film Festival and brewery socials, things like that. And again, I think that we have a small enough number of events that it would be safe to combine those, and probably beneficial to have a little more manpower working on each of these. So, discussion, thoughts on that?
Sounds good to me, Chris, and I guess I'm to blame for separating out the special projects. I was really pushing ELC at the time and thought it deserved a special category, but that, with what's happened over the last couple of years, that no longer applies. So absolutely, projects and special projects should be combined.
Yeah, I support both.
I agree with that.
I agree with that.
Are we voting? Yeah, let's, if nobody has any other comments, concerns, wants to talk about it, then let's work on voting here.
So do we need a
I move
motion?
we accept.
Okay,
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Who
Okay,
moved?
I'll-
It was
uh,
Jean.
Jean
Okay.
moved, and then who seconded?
Kim?
All right, all in favor of merging the projects and special projects committees and the community involvement and special events committees?
I,
Aye.
Any opposed?
I would retain the name community involvement, though.
Okay. Yep, okay. Then that motion passes, and I'll get this updated and inform everybody on those various committees that of the change. All right, cool. Uh-oh, out of lead. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to the agenda. Next item. We've got Pam, I can share this the CTU contribution policy so we can see it, but do you mind kind of talking about it, since this is your
right.
area of
right.
expertise? So let me share the policy here so people can look at it. Where do I have it? That one.
And I apologize for sending that out also late. But I think most of you know what the history of the policy is. The chapter for many years was sending funds, a portion of our fundraising proceeds to CTU to support their organization. During our banquet years, those were pretty healthy checks. And then when the banquets ceased, we rewrote the policy to reflect our diminished capacity to fund, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year. Our fundraising continued, and the new policy says that we'll fund, I'll call it fund, but it's basically a donation to CTU of 10% of our proceeds from all fundraising events, or a minimum of $1,000, whichever is greater for the year. And then there it is. Then the policy goes on to talk about how we calculate the amount if it's going to be greater than $1,000. But we did establish a minimum amount for continuing funding. We honestly have not funded them the $1,000 for the past couple of years.
You sure?
Eh,
Really?
And I'm not sure why. However, when I was putting the budget together this year, I included it, and I thought it may be time to bring it around again to say, are we going to do this or are we not going to do this? To give the treasurer, myself, and the new treasurer some guidance. So that's why I brought it up for this meeting.
I thought we were doing it.
I did too.
Me
No.
too.
Nope, we haven't been. And like I said, I don't know why I haven't been writing those checks, but I have not. So it has been a couple of years since we sent them a check for something outside of the gala as this contribution.
Well, I think that we should absolutely continue it. CTU just solved a huge problem by helping me get this raffle coming up. That probably saved money right there. It certainly saved hours and my frustration. I think it's absolutely worth continuing the policy. I wonder if there doesn't need to be some wording added to exclude project-specific grants, because I don't think the grants Chris and I are writing now should be part of that fundraising bucket.
I don't see grants as fundraising, really.
Yeah.
This was hard fought. So if you'd like to rewrite the policy, please let me know. But again, I said when I was putting the budget together for our upcoming year, this $1,000 is in our budget. So are we going to fund CTU this $1,000, or I can make some attempt to figure out what 10% of all our annual fundraising efforts looks like number wise. But the reason I think we threw the $1,000 as a minimum in there was at least we had a
Commitment.
minimum amount.
Pam, did we have it in our budget for this year?
Pardon me?
Was the $1,000 in our budget for this year, this past year,
Yes, it was.
and the year before? Then we didn't, you
Yeah.
don't know the last year that we did it?
Yep, I guess maybe that's where I perhaps fell down. Nobody, including myself, pushed for it. So as part of describing what the treasurer's responsibilities are, I think enforcing this, following the guidance of this policy is something the treasurer needs to do, and I'm willing to do if the board would like to enforce the policy.
Yeah, I just have one question. What's the rationale for not just happen to be $1,000? Like, why is it the greater of that, or, all the revenue we're able to generate from fundraising efforts and events?
We were trying to put a floor under it.
Understood. Now I get the floor, but why the ups? Like, why 10%? Is the rationale that they would be assisting us, like Keith was mentioning, when we do fundraising efforts and events? So 10% should go to them. I'm just trying to understand the rationale. That's all.
Not necessarily. The 10% came from an old policy, a
Right.
continuing policy. So, as our revenue shrunk, the 10% was still, maybe a goal. But if we couldn't, it's 10% or $1,000, whichever is greater. So
I'm just trying to understand the rationale, like the logic of it. That's all.
I think to make up, in the old days of the Caddis Festival, we could give up to, I mean, we'd get $30,000 at the Caddis Festival in sponsorships and auction items and income. And so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Keith, you've probably been around the longest. We're part of them. They pay for all of our volunteer insurance and stuff. We felt like it was important to give to that. So we would give like up to $5,000 some years, depending on how the Caddis Festival went. And we wanted to be able to say if our fundraising is successful, that we could still share that with CTU.
Okay.
The letter that Chris wrote about the mine was based on a CTU staffer's input about land policy, and it helps fund their staffers. I understand CTU's in pretty good financial position right now, but that's the backstory I know.
Okay, so it
I think
was,
that's correct, Karen.
I'm sorry, Mark, what'd you say?
no, I was just gonna say, so there was I mean, basically the logic was in the fundraising efforts, broadly speaking, it's not gonna be everything, but they provide, you know, enough support that it's sort of correlate, you know, the success we have is partially driven by their
Yes.
support of us in various ways. So that is, okay, that's all I was wondering.
Yeah, and I guess I would throw out also, we're talking now about Priority Rivers program that is a TU national program, but you know, we're working with CTU on what are our priority waters. So they're doing all that kind of work, which benefits us in the end. So we use their youth fly fishing program. I mean, we do take advantage of the programs that they offer. So it's kind of our way of helping them provide those services to us.
Do you know, is that pretty standard throughout the state, other chapters doing that?
Yes and no. I had the pleasure of going to some of the rendezvous where other chapters would make donations, and they were like 500 to 750. Then I'd strut right up there and give Dave a check for 3,000. So we were always at the top. And it was because our only fundraising effort in the old days was the Caddis Festival. We didn't go out and direct ask people. We didn't have other fundraising events. We relied on the Caddis Festival auction and banquet. It was very successful until we could no longer staff it. And I think the mindset, the generosity mindset is kind of left over from that, Mark, that we were much more flush then, and we felt that we could participate, and we just left it as a percentage basis because we didn't know how much the Caddis Festival would earn. And I think Karen's right, it was 3,000 to 5,000, the checks I remember.
You think 10% is the right number, Keith?
Say again?
You think 10% still the right number? I mean, it
I
sounds-
believe that's a carryover, yeah.
But I mean, for like on a perspective basis, you know, just given the way our fundraising efforts have changed since then and their level of engagement. I'm fine with this, by the way. I'm just trying to understand the history and if it's still applicable, you know, to the present. And it sounds like it
Well,
probably that's
10% creates work for somebody to figure out what that 10% value is. I wouldn't have a problem with just going for now with $1,000 annual contribution.
Well, let me make an attempt to identify the fundraising that we've done last fiscal year and see what that 10% number would look like.
Or Pam, does it make any sense to, I don't know if we can do it now by our bylaws, delete the whichever is, just leave it at a minimum of $1,000 period, delete the 10%. And then but, and maybe you put a date in by which we do it, and we can then just say, the board then would have the discretion if they want to donate more, depending on what our fundraising and our cash flow is. Because this is a lot of work, like you say, for the treasurer. The treasurer can say, this is the budget, this is how much we have. We had great fundraising and we can afford to give an extra $1,000. But I don't know if this is the meeting at which we do this.
Figuring out 10% of income is pretty simple. I'd leave it to Pam to figure out what the 10% is. And I don't mind giving them 10%.
Okay, well, let me do this with your permission. As I said, I will take a look at our fundraising for last fiscal year and see what that 10% number looks like. Because the way the policy is written, if it comes up where it's $1,200, I'd come back to the board and say, this is the number I've come up with. This is how I calculated it. Do we want to pay 1,200 or do we want to go with 1,000? I mean,
I think that's a good idea. And I would also have you look with your expertise and say, can we afford to pay back what we were supposed to pay them? See, when we wrote the last check.
I don't think I would, well, we can consider that as an option.
Well, it does say that it was approved April 8th, 2020. So, I mean, this policy's been in effect for 2.5 years.
Right.
So, which gets back to the my original question is, we've got this policy. We really haven't been following it for whatever reason. Should we follow it now?
Yes, and I agree with Karen. I think we should look at payment in arrears because we approved the policy, and I don't think it's at all inappropriate. But I think the thing that helped be most helpful, Pam, is if we could have an idea of the total fundraising.
Well,
So
just looking at
You want
Pam's-
me to go back to 2020?
If you
No.
can, if you can search for CTU.
I'd be willing to accept a typical year, to look at, and then just go to $1,000 for previous years.
Yeah, that might be simplest, is just do 1,000, I mean, right, for the prior years.
Yeah,
I agree.
that,
I
I'd be
agree.
good with that.
But I
Okay.
think this,
The email Pam sent out, last week? It, has the inflow, outflows for the 23 inflow. Almost all of that would be fundraising, and it was close to 16,000. And I'm sure we could pick out certain categories that you wouldn't count for it, but that gives you a ballpark of what 2023 was.
Thanks, Dave.
I would say
Yeah.
that this is a policy that was approved by the board in the past, and so it's in force and should be followed unless we want to have a vote to specifically discontinue it. So, but otherwise, I would say it's in force and we need to follow it. So unless somebody wants to discuss discontinuing this policy, I don't think we need to vote on anything. We just need to make sure moving forward that that the future treasurer knows about it, so we continue to honor it.
And there is a date on that, paying by May 31st. So is it okay to have Pam get that information and send it to us by email as to what we should have been paying, if it's a minimum for those, 2 or 3 years plus what we owe here, and we can make an email vote?
No, I agree with Mark. I think we ought to do 1,000 for the 2 years we've missed and calculate the last year and do that. It sounds like it'll be 1,500 or something rather than 1,000.
Right, right. And I would say, in looking at the cash flow that I sent you, the inflow and outflow, the only category I would drop out of here would be donations. Because donations are given to us. We didn't raise, well,
Yeah,
necessarily.
we ask for
raise
those
them.
at the end of the year and all the time, kind of.
Yeah, but you look at, let's say, the $5,000 that Blue Triton gave us. Did
Yeah.
did
Blue
we,
Ask for that, yeah.
they donated that.
They
We
beat
didn't,
us to it. We were gonna ask him.
oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah.
We were getting ready to ask them. I saw an article in the paper. We weren't that special. They gave away over $100,000 in the valley to a lot of organizations, including ours. We came out as one of the higher ones, but Blue Triton spread the wealth around pretty good last year.
Okay, well,
Okay.
the way I'll proceed is I'll calculate what we should pay for 22, 23, 10% or $1,000, whichever is graded. We'll go with a blanket, $1,000 for 2020, 1,000 for 2020.
The next one.
Yeah, the next fiscal year. And then we'll look at that number. I'll send it out via email and ask for approval. Fund.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so the way I read this, the last paragraph of this, it says treasurer shall fund the contribution after review and approval by the BoD of the year-end fiscal statement and budget. It doesn't say that you need our explicit permission to send this check. Just after the budget and year-end statement are approved, you would pull this money out and send it. That's how I read that last portion.
True.
Well, and I would agree with that, Chris. The reason I brought it up is we hadn't been doing it, but we've been budgeting for it. So if it's in the approved budget, then I honestly don't need to come back to the board to send it. But my hiccup here was we hadn't been doing it for a couple of years, so I
Right.
don't want to overstep.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's good. So so we'll take a quick vote just to approve that we will give $1,000 for any previous years that we've missed, and then calculate 10% of raised funds from fiscal year 2023 and send that check out. So does somebody want to do a motion based on that?
So moved.
A second?
I second.
Okay, so Karen seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pam. As long as you're rocking and rolling there, Pam, let's skip item E for right now and go straight to voting to approve the budget.
Okay, a couple of weeks ago now, I sent out the proposed budget for our upcoming fiscal year of April 1st, 2023 through March 31st, 2024. So the document I sent showed you last fiscal year and what the proposed budget is for the year that we're now in. And I had contacted committee leads, and looking at the books and knowing a little bit of the history of each of the categories, I made some suggestions on what to do there. And also in this new budget, with the grant activity that's going on now, I added in a new section called grants because I know Chris and Keith are heavily involved in some grant writing. And we're hoping some of that will come to pass. So I wanted a placeholder in the budget to forecast a budget need for grants or act as a placeholder for grants we may be receiving. So that's how I put it together. I sent it to the budget committee for a quick peek and only had a couple comments on it. So I only had one other question from another board member about it, which led to that document, the cash flow of input output. So you would have some idea of what our cash flow looks like over the course of our fiscal year. And you'll see that in that document, we ended the year in roughly 4,000 in the black. So I think that shows that we're pretty close to budget, but we need to keep in mind that we only spent actually about half of what we budgeted. So maybe with our new scholarship policy, we'll have more expense in the upcoming year because we've not funded scholarships for several years. And so that's kind of the gist of how I put the budget together. It did come up with a pretty high number, again, due to the category for the Monarch Parks fishing pier. Fishing is Fun grant that Chris is working with on CPW. That $7,500 number is just a placeholder at this point. Could go up or down, but it was a place to start for that grant. Because I anticipate, and Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, I anticipate we'll be asked to contribute something to that grant.
Yeah, usually there is a match amount of all the grants that we usually apply for, so that's good. I just think the first line item under grants, and you have CCC grant funded. Just drop the CCC. We're going to fund that from whatever grant we get.
Oh, okay.
Not necessarily through CCC.
Okay.
And I had another comment. It's under the fundraising expense category, but you had a line item, food for events, and you dropped it. How do we do the year in review meeting? Doesn't the chapter buy that food for that event?
Right, but there is a separate line item for year in review.
Oh, there is? Okay, sorry.
Yeah, and also the reason I dropped it is with the addition of a line item for community engagement / socials. There's $100 there that, you know, if we want to buy food, we can put an expense there.
When you say drop a line item, does that mean the whole category will disappear?
No. No,
Okay.
well, yeah, well, it does. For example, if you look at under adult activities events, I dropped annual picnic. And I dropped chapter trips. And I dropped strategic planning as categories because we have not been doing those for years.
Well, we used to do strategic planning every year, and I know CTU and TU encourage that. All that we bought really was drinks and pizza usually for that, so it's a low expense. But I guess I'm concerned when the new treasurer comes in and she doesn't have a chapter trips category or a strategic planning category, whether those will be dropped as potential activities, which is, I don't think is a long-term strategy that'll be effective. So, I mean, keeping the items as placeholders would be fine with me. but everybody else can.
The reason I wanted to drop them is because, yeah, they could be placeholders. However, we can also put them under a different event. Like I know Larry, for years organized the fishing trips. That's not going to happen going forward. So I don't see a point in keeping that line item there.
Well, I guess I disagree with that, and that we might get somebody else who might want to organize the chapter trip or have another place to do a chapter picnic. Yeah, we've kind of done in lieu of those the socials, but you know, an hour or two to talk to somebody doesn't quite match a couple days with your colleagues. So
Yeah,
I don't, if it isn't too much trouble, plus it would give the treasurer say, well, what were these things? Why don't we have any money that we did used to do those?
Well, and I think there's some of those items that got dropped specifically because of COVID too, that we couldn't do some of that stuff. Where you might find someone, you know, you look at how popular the film festival was. I think people want to get together and do stuff, and you know, just finding that right person to kind of champion some of that. But if that clue isn't there in the budget, that it might get lost. I don't know.
Okay, well, let's do this. I will leave those in the budget as unfunded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing
Okay.
with strategic plan too, because we should do that.
And that's, again, I feel like one of those with COVID, like we just couldn't get together and some of that stuff just got dropped a little bit. And it's a good hint to remember to get back on some of that stuff.
I'll add a blip to that, and that is the fact that with the COVID, the onslaught of camping availability is just damn near impossible, even for a group of two. To get two sites anywhere
I
at
hear
the
you,
same
Larry.
time is
I-
damn near impossible.
Yeah, no, and I can't remember. I'll see if I can find the article that talked about the actual numbers in terms of people that have gone camping for the first time in the last 2
15 million
years.
more.
It was ridiculous, and how the demand for campsites is just skyrocketed. It really is crazy. But I think there's space there for, like, you know, Fly Gals. We just go to a Haver, which is kind of convenient because those of us that work during the day can still stop in and play. But even just some local fishing trips might be a fun kind of piece to layer in at some point.
Yeah, I just have
Okay.
2 comments before we and I'm the one that asked for the revenue or cash flow statement, you know, from Pam, but I do think it would be good going forward anyway, that we do include in the budget some kind of projected revenues by category, you know, like fundraising, events, and grants and so forth. And then also, because, you know, right now we have expenses in this budget that are more than double the revenue we brought in last year. Now, we talked through as to why, you know, we're comfortable with that, but I think it'd be a good practice to show kind of the projected revenues by category, so it kind of matches the expenses. And then secondly, on the balance sheet, and maybe we have this, but I think it'd be good practice as a nonprofit to have some kind of a range of reserves, you know, the cash and bank account line item. Like, what's the minimum would be a threshold, what's the maximum? So, you know, just as a matter of practice, because we should be as a nonprofit having revenue closely match expenses. You know, we're not trying to raise money, but we need to have some kind of a cushion for reserves. That'd be prudent. But I just think it'd be good practice to incorporate those 2 steps going forward.
Are you saying, Mark, to include those additional documentation in our budget approval process? That
Yeah, in the future.
What
I
are-
just throw it out there.
And
Yes.
not necessarily for this budget year.
Yeah, not for this budget year. I'm just saying, just planting a couple seeds for the future potentially.
Okay, what I'll do here is everything that I've marked as a drop, I'll reinstate and just leave it unfunded.
Okay, I think that's a good approach, Pam. And then the postage, it's under fundraising, but direct mailing supplies and direct mailing postage. We did quite a bit of that in previous years, and COVID did screw everything up, but I remember sending postcards out of the schedule for the entire year, the full membership, like 300 postcards. That costs money. Doesn't mean we're going to do it again, but I think we need a placeholder in case that we get back into that situation. So I like your latest statement.
Yeah, and this is just a thread to think about in 20, and I think Mark, or maybe Chris brought this up at the film festival. In 2025 will be our 40-year anniversary. If we can get somebody to do it, maybe we do an anniversary Caddis Festival or some kind of big celebration. Just a thought. We got new blood.
All right, well, back to the budget. Can
Um,
I get someone, or any more comments, questions? They're all good questions.
Great job.
If not, I would ask someone to make a motion to approve this budget.
I move that we approve the budget as submitted with the revision that all of the dropped line items be retained as placeholders or unfunded.
Second.
Thank you.
Who seconded that?
Chris,
Thank you, Chris.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Budget is approved. Thank you very much, Pam, for all your work on this. I know it was a ton of
Yes.
work doing this, working and getting everybody to give you feedback. So thank you for putting it all together. It was great. Okay. Let's see here. Where'd the agenda go? I have too many documents to try to sift through to try to share. Okay, so the cleanup, green up, we skipped that one. That's May 20th. That I think I'll just send an email to you guys. It's going to go out in the newsletter. Basically, it's there's a website where people sign up to, they pick a section of river and sign up to do it. There'll be like a picnic lunch at the community center in BV or at the Vanderveer property in Salida. So they'll be doing picnicking and things. And I think we've worked on that before. I know Rick Helmick has worked on that, so I'm probably going to reach out with him to see if we want to do something. But I'll do that by email. I don't think we need to work on that tonight. We've got a little bit of time on that. So if it's okay with everybody, we'll kind of move this item E to an email agenda item that I'll work on over the next few days. And then, so moving on to number G. So this kind of came up over the last couple of days. Jerry sent out, if anybody who hadn't seen this, there's a company, CJK Mill Company, wants to reopen the Leadville Mill and use sodium cyanide to process all those big slag piles to leach out whatever gold and silver are left in there. So there's today was, and actually midnight tonight is the deadline for public comment on that. So I wrote a letter of concern. Jason Willis is on sabbatical and I think he's in Thailand right now, but Tanner Banks works with him for the Abandoned Mine Lands program. I sent it over to him, and it really wasn't enough time for him to do a deep dive into this. So he kind of sent over some areas of concern generally, like this is what goes wrong with these sorts of operations. So I crafted a letter of concern rather than a letter of objection and sent it to Lucas West at the he's with the DRMS, Department of Reclamation and Mine Safety. He's the one that is going to oversee the approval or denial of the permit. So I sent that over, and I also put it in on their online comment thing and actually got an email back from Lucas and ended up having a really good conversation with him on the phone today about the process. So it's very much they have to prove to us that they will do this safely before we will approve it, rather than a kind of, they have to talk us into it, essentially, is kind of how that process goes. Now that the chapter has put in this letter, we are a party to this application. So we will be notified of everything, all the different things that happen. And because there are objections, he said there's some like 73 objections that were put in, that it now has to go, it can't be done on an administrative level. It has to go to the Mine Safety Council. So look for a full hearing thing. He essentially said between the Department of Mine Safety, the county, they also have to get permission from the county, and I think CDPHE has to weigh in on it as well. It's going to be probably easily a 2-year process before this happens, if it happens. So, but they're looking very, very, very closely at all aspects of this, from the milling to the process they use to excavate these old slag piles to make sure that doesn't expose those to runoff, and all these different things are going to be looked at very, very closely. So anyway, so that's where that is. So just wanted to let you know, because I had that whole process happen today, but had a really good conversation with Lucas. So I felt good about his diligence in making sure these things are as safe as possible. So
The letter gone out, Chris?
it did go out, yeah.
Chris, I filed a letter of objection for Aroa yesterday,
Mhm.
kind of matching
Okay.
the letter pretty much to the T with the coalition of community members from Leadville that kind of alerted us to this.
Yeah. Cool. And there is time left if you guys want to personally sign on and write your own objections. There's a link in the emails that I sent out earlier today with that, if you want to do something more forceful. I kind of decided not to do a full like objection letter, just because we didn't have a real complete scientific look at what was going on and what their proposal looks like. And so I didn't want to go that hard at it with the Trout Unlimited brand without having a knowledge of the science on our side. So, but we are on record with a letter of concern, and which I think is good. So any questions on that? Okay, so next, sort of related, hopefully you guys are all kind of familiar with the Uinta Basin train situation. And TU, Colorado Trout Unlimited, and I think they're close to getting National Trout Unlimited to sign on to oppose this, which would basically add, and Karen, maybe you'd be better to do this. You and Reed have been working so hard on this. You probably have a better synopsis of what's going on here. Do you mind chatting on this? Karen there? You're muted, Karen. You're muted, Karen.
Karen, you're muted.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
The Center for Biological Diversity is headed this up. They're based in Salt Lake City. They're nationwide. Reed has a call every frigging Monday for updates. And the letter that they sent to Chris is to get him to, keep moving. They want to get to Pete Buttigieg, Director of Transportation, to have him. He has the power to axe kind of the whole thing. There's a whole lot of money involved in terms of using federal funds to even do a study that it's never been done for private companies before. So it's basically our letter of support to keep moving this process forward to make sure that all the due diligence is done. And if you want super details, I can get Reed up here, but I think he sent some stuff on the newsletter updating you.
Is everybody generally familiar with the issue here? If you're not, speak up. Okay, good.
Yeah, if you have specific questions, send Reed an email.
I get from other nonprofits emails requesting you send a letter to your congressman to get them to work against it, which I've done 2 or 3 times.
I don't think it's to, I don't know that it's to that point. I know Julie McCluskey, our person, and Bennett and Nagoose are all, kind of on board with this. The mayor of Glenwood Springs is vehemently against it. So when it gets to the point, if we need to have people write individually, yes, that info will be sent out.
Well, isn't the real issue is that the developers just analyzed the impact in Utah and they completely ignored
Yes,
Colorado, and these
Correct.
2-mile-long trains with waxy crew are going to be right along the edge of the Colorado River, and that was never even
That's
discussed,
correct.
let alone studied. So
that's correct.
Yeah, they're,
Yeah.
I think what this is talking about is trying to get them to do an environmental impact assessment in Colorado, which they haven't done.
right.
So that's kind of where that's the push right now with this. So we need to vote on signing on to this as a chapter. So can we get motions and seconds and whatnot?
Motion to
Move that we
send the
oppose the
letter.
trade.
Dave Belmont says motion to send.
Okay, everybody in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, good, because I actually already signed it. So, okay, cool. We're getting close, people. We're gonna be get out in time to watch the third period of the Bruins game, I hope so. Let's go to reports. So let me change my share here. Do a quick report on Film Fest. So, all right, can you guys see that?
How can you make it bigger?
I'm working on it here. How's that?
Much better, thank you.
Okay.
Wow.
So this is the number here to look at. That's kind of our net proceeds from the Film Fest. So we had, sponsorships. Mark and Keith and I spent a couple afternoons walking around town asking for sponsorships, and we ended up getting $1,600, which was pretty good considering we only went to see probably maybe 10 people. So raffle sales were good. Ticket sales, that's our net. So if you recall, we were Upriver paid $1,100 and they had $1,100 in costs for the room, and so we were going to reimburse them for that. And then once we got that, we're splitting ticket revenue 50-50 with them. So they're going to get that 1170. So we get 1170, which is half of the net after the reimbursement. And then it's just cost for doing like Facebook and Instagram boosts, which is actually really effective. We got a lot of ticket sales out of that actually. So then our net is 4,500 and change, which I think is pretty good. When we first started talking about this, the idea was to have a community event. We all wanted to see the films and get everybody together and get them excited about fishing for the spring and kind of raise the profile and recognition of the chapter. And I think we succeeded very well in all of those counts. And we made some money, which is a bonus. That was sort of a never the primary goal of this, but I think we did a great job here. So again, thank you to everybody who worked on this. The guys at Upriver Michael in particular did a ton of work. He's the one that did all the groundwork, getting all those raffle items. So, anybody have questions?
We're doing it again next year, right?
I want to do it again next year. I had fun doing it. I had fun setting it up. So,
Absolutely.
Are we sending thank you notes to those sponsors and vendors?
yep,
Okay,
I'm working on that. That'll be first thing next week. I'm going to do that.
great.
I asked Michael to send me a list of those people, and I'm just waiting for that list. So, yeah,
I've
definitely.
already sent out thank you letters to the sponsors for that 1,600.
Okay, great.
Great, Pam. Yeah,
Yeah,
Well, I think kudos go to Chris. He was the driving force behind this, and this was extremely successful from all aspects. So good job, Chris.
Yes, good job, Chris.
Thanks. Like I said, I had
Yeah.
fun doing it. So,
Yeah, the
Um,
attendance too, not just the number, but the range in ages and the gender split was amazing. I mean, it was a proper community event. So that was really encouraging.
yeah, and people
And
had fun.
So an interesting thing, some of you old timers know Bob Good, who was a retired Denver Post outdoor rider, internationally known outdoor rider. And he lives here and up at Mount Massive Lakes in Leadville. And in the past had donated, fishing at their private lakes to the Caddis Festival. And he was there. He's kind of got some dementia, but he and his family loved it. And he says, you should have asked me for a sponsorship. I would give you, 2 days or a day at Mount Massive. So we'll keep that on our books for next year.
Yep, I've got that written down.
Great.
I definitely think we can do more with sponsorships. We didn't try very hard to do the sponsorships. Just by design, we didn't really want to spend too much energy on it. And it was very successful. Lance Kittle is he's a fly tire, and he was there, and he mentioned the same thing. He's like, I would love to sponsor this kind of thing. I'm like, all right, well, we'll hit you next year. So
Yeah, to that point, and just having conversations at a particular fly shop, I think the connection with Upriver might have also deterred some potential donations with folks that didn't understand necessarily how the event was set up. And not to poo-poo, I know Upriver was awesome in getting everything set and their help and support to make it happen. But maybe looking at a different way to structure that next year might open up some opportunity for some other sponsors too. So just to throw that out there without.
yeah, no, I'd like to kind of, that's something that I've been concerned about, was it was so high profile that I didn't want to, I was trying not to alienate other people. So I'd like to talk a little more about that one-on-one maybe, and so we can work on that for next time.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's just a sponsorship level of, donating a certain amount, get you a certain level of promotion at the event, but I know that's, and again, Upriver did amazing things, but just figuring out the best way to manage that and open doors for some other folks too that want to give us stuff.
Yeah, and I didn't approach other fly shops. So I figured we work with them on other stuff, but again, that's first time we've done it. So I'm very, very open to ways to improve going forward. So
cool. Yeah, and it was an awesome event. Like, it was super fun. So
I think going back to like remembering the Caddis Festival, I mean, outfitters, both rafting and fishing outfitters used to donate a lot of trips. There is a potential. This event, it did, to me, it felt like, well, Upriver is kind of like a co-sponsor with us almost.
They were.
Is how it felt. Yeah. And that's what it was. And that was fine, like Kim mentioned. But if we wanted it to be bigger, we could make it bigger as far as reaching out in the sponsorship world.
Only if you have people who are willing to take the time to go reach out to get sponsorships and to help direct it. And that's why we lost the Caddis Festival. We couldn't find somebody to direct it, and people were burned out on asking.
There were a lot of other things that I don't think we should go into here around the ask situation for the Caddis Festival at the end. I have a lot of feedback that came my way after that festival and did.
Good. We need to just have another.
To change the subject a little bit, I don't know if anyone read Tom Arnott's membership report, but there was a section in there, and I believe it was in Tom's report, that talked about the film festival and who the members were and numbers of non-members. And it was surprising that the majority of the people who attended were non-members of the chapter. Based on a review of just the ticket sale names, I believe. Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but
That doesn't
It-
surprise me at all.
it was
actually.
surprising. Yeah.
But we did a lot of promotion outside of the membership, like on Facebook, Instagram. We just did boosted posts, and they were posts from the chapter, but it just went out to the public. And so I'm not surprised by that. You know, we have 300 members, so I wouldn't think that 50% of them would come and fill the room. So but it again, I think that's a good thing, because it raised our profile and increased our recognition with those people that aren't members. So which
Well,
is one of our key goals.
Yeah, and I can't remember who pointed it out, but the demographic distribution was amazing. There were a lot of women, there were a lot of younger faces, and a good opportunity for TU to kind of get connected with some folks that are interested in fishing, and you know, they wanted to pay money to come and hang out and do fishing things, and so it's a good membership opportunity as well. So good,
And-
good space to be in. It's good.
Chris,
Did
do you know how many people signed up for the free membership?
That was in the report that Tom sent out. I don't remember. Was it 8 or was it like 3 or so? I can't remember how many signed up at that event.
Yes.
I can't remember. It wasn't a lot.
Join date.
So.
What was the date?
Well, I think that's pretty important to capture all those newbies. I remember when we had the less successful film festival in years past, there was a sign-up sheet at the door, and it was almost like sign in and you can come into the room. So I think efforts similar to that would be productive, because I've never seen that many non-member participants in any of our events, no matter what they were.
Yeah. But we didn't really try to market it as a chapter event.
Yeah.
It was a fundraiser for the chapter. But anyway, yeah, we had, I think, 2 people put their email addresses down we had a email list over there. And so, one thing that CTU and National TU keep saying over and over when we have these discussions and like the state board meetings and things are that younger people, younger generations, they're not joiners. They want to go to events, they want to participate in volunteer things, they want to do the work, but they don't particularly want to join the group. And so that's something that we kind of have to get used to and work around. But that's sort of part of the paradigm shift that groups like ours have been struggling with for years, is how do we get younger people to join? The fact is they don't want to join. It's just not something they do. So
Yeah. Oh,
except for Kim.
Because I do all the things, I can't stop. So
All right, can we move on?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Dave, you want to give us a breakdown on the tying classes?
Yeah, so both with 2 classes. The second one was 2 Mondays ago. Everything blurs together. We had another, I think it was 13 people tying. Again, I thought it was success. People were very appreciative, had a good time. Trace Litros was very, they've been very generous with donating the space at the venue. I think we're done for the season. I know Colin at Next Eddy is definitely done. So I think we just look at scheduling some more for next year. I like the idea of having some dedicated classes, not just the tying nights with Next Eddy, so we can continue to, try to alternate, some specific TU classes and go from there. I've been, again, trying to really keep the budget as minimum. We spent $5, I think, the second class and like 25 the first one. I've just been donating a bunch of some of my material and trying to use up whatever we have in the shed. And I think it's realistic to keep it pretty cheap for at least one more season, and then maybe we'll have to start buying some more stuff.
Dave, how many people were at the first one? Do you know roughly
I think it was 13 for both.
for both? And
Yeah.
you have a list of the people's names perchance?
We should for the second one. I don't know, Chris, if you were able to access that, the online sign up thing, if you
Oh, I
can
didn't know
still
people-
view that to get the names, but I don't know myself.
I'll send that over to Tom and we can take a look at how many were members and non-members. Because
Yeah,
again,
and
that
I
was,
know Susie and Ruthie crashed it this last time. They didn't sign up and it still came to play. So
okay.
just a side note.
Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah,
it.
no.
So just an FYI for that. In the TU annual report, sometimes they ask for not just participants, but members and non-members. So that's why I asked for that. And then I can kind of go through the roster and compare.
Yeah, I can pull that list and send it to you from the last
Thank
one.
you.
We didn't use a sign up for the first one.
Okay.
It was just kind of come as you are, but the second one we used an online RSVP, so we have their names.
Okay.
Or at
that's
least
great.
it may have been, somebody did two, so we only have one name for two people, but I can get that list and send it to you, Karen.
And just an FYI, because it has to do with fly tying classes, Kim has been doing one for Fly Gals, and she's been doing an awesome job as an instructor and very organized. And I think there've been 6 or 7 of us there, at each of the last 4 and crying for more. And so, yeah.
Yay.
Cool.
It
Awesome.
was fun. Yeah, no, it was good. I really enjoyed it and want to look for opportunities to do more of it because it was really fun. We had a good time. Learned stuff.
Cool.
Fun.
Great. That makes me think of something. So the tying materials and vices and tools and everything, we need to make sure that those are available for the stream explorers.
Okay.
And that we have materials. I know we've been pulling some materials out of that for these classes and the socials and here and there. So if you, Kim, if you're going to continue doing these classes, if you and Keith could coordinate and make sure that we've got what we need for stream explorers and
Yep.
that and whenever those are, I don't remember when those are scheduled, but
Yeah, and I need to get those. I need to connect with Keith on that anyway. I've got the vices, the box with all the vices, but all the materials that Fly Gals use, the Fly Gals purchased. So
Okay.
I don't have any of the chapter materials. I don't think. I just have vices. So,
Okay.
but Keith
Do
and
you
I would.
have- do you
Yeah.
have
Have
those,
the
Dave,
red-
or are they back in the shed?
I have one bin of materials that I was going to bring
Okay.
back this weekend, and then there's
Okay.
other stuff in the shed.
All right, cool.
Is the red box, do you have the red box, Kim?
That's what I have. Yeah, with the vices and the little tying kits with.
Right, what about,
yeah.
what about the green box, the one that had black tape on it?
That one I do not have. I just have the red one.
That's the lead bases for all the vices though.
The bases are all on the vices in the red box.
Okay,
Is how I received it. So that's how I put it back. So
if they all fit, fine.
they do. It's very heavy, but they're all in there.
Hey, Chris, can I go back to one thing that's still on the screen? Your total for the film festival, 1170 net ticket proceeds to us. Does that include sponsorships and raffles and everything? Or is that just net tickets?
The ticket. So we have sponsorship, the 1,600 for sponsorships. Raffle tickets was 1,835.
Yeah.
That's just for door tickets. That's our net from door tickets. So the grand total is
Basically
$45.49.
$5,600 and change we netted with the
No.
net ticket proceeds and,
For the-
you've got that in there. You've got that in there. I got it.
This is,
Thank you.
yeah, this is
45,
the
49. Perfect.
sum here. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
So, Forgot I was still sharing that. So let's go back here. So okay, so one more thing. I just wanted to give a quick update. Let's see, Saturday was the Colorado Trout Unlimited spring board meeting. And at that board meeting, they announced the CTU Colorado Rivers Fund grant awards, which is one that we had applied for, and we received the full 10,000 that we had asked for
Woo,
that, and that's for the South Arc design. So we have
awesome.
two, which is great. And that was by far the biggest award that was given out for those. So yeah, and we still have the Colorado Watershed Assembly, the Colorado Healthy Rivers Fund. That was a $20,000 application that we put in. That was supposed to be announced on tax day. That's what the thing says, but we haven't heard anything yet. So that hopefully we'll be hearing any day now whether we get that, and if so, how much. And then Keith, have you heard any more updates from CCCF?
Not yet. I actually wrote a grant for the Jane Messer Fund directed towards open space, and I instructed that application, that request of the 3 open space areas. So I think we stand a good chance of getting that. They award $8,000 up to 15 times. I mean, they'll give 15 per year. They're not supposed to make a decision until June. The Chaffey County Community Foundation, they have an environmental innovation fund that I wrote for and submitted. I'm really confident about that, mostly because rather than reject me at the end, they called and asked for a little additional information, which is a good sign. I'm very confident. I applied for 10,000 for that. There's a possibility I could finagle that into 16,000, which is the full amount. I'm meeting with Betsy, the executive director of CCCF, tomorrow, right before lunch, and I'm going to see when the selection committee is going to meet on that. But I'm going to try and upstage Chris.
Great, please do. So cool. That would again, that money is going to go for conceptual design for that whole stretch from the confluence up to County Road 107, and then that in turn, once we have that design, is kind of the key piece that would let us get implementation funds. And we're looking somewhere between 300 and 500,000 total, probably, to do all the work that we want to try to do on that whole stretch. And that would be over the next, couple, 3 years, probably, that would happen. But so there's that. The other one that we got hanging out there is the Fishing is Fun grant for the ADA fishing pier up at Monarch Ponds from CPW, and that one should be announced anytime now as well. So we're kind of still waiting on those, but so anyway, that's kind of where we're at on grants right now for projects, is mostly waiting and seeing, but we got some, so we're moving in the right direction.
Chris, I have an update on the Stream Restoration Act that's in the state legislature.
Yeah.
It's it was just what's called re-engrossed today. It's after the 3rd hearing by the Senate yesterday. So they are still dealing with the language. But what was interesting to me was last week at our roundtable meeting, which was the day before or the day of, but I didn't get it, was the day that CTU put out that support for that bill, that letter that came out. And I sat there and we just got hammered with opposition to this bill from roundtable members that were fearful of the impact on water right owners. And I don't know that the proponents did a great job of explaining what this thing was about or how it all came to be, but I guess it's moving along with changes in the language that some of these opposition folks hopefully will be okay with. But it was kind of interesting to me that the timing of those two things, how it came to be. So hopefully we'll see what happens with that.
Bobby, are you
Definitely
in
watching
touch
that
with
one close.
CTU about this?
No, I was just wondering, because it was, the CTU letter came like that afternoon after I got home from this roundtable meeting. And I was surprised that, you know, we didn't really know what was happening with it to that degree. And I don't know what the opposition is like at the other roundtables, but obviously people are kind of upset because anytime you're talking about water rights and water right ownership and infringement, people get pretty irate in this state and in our basin for sure.
Yeah, and this.
So
my
no, I have
understanding-
not talked to anybody there and I don't know. What should we let them know what's going on with roundtables?
I would think so. Jen Bolton is our lobbyist. Do you have her contact info to you?
You know, Reed gave me a contact at the film festival, so we could follow up, but I think it's gonna move ahead. It's just a matter of the language is gonna get more dialed in.
I know it's been watered
So-
down some from where it originally was,
Yeah,
in terms of the scale of projects that are going to receive a presumption of no harm. Is definitely been scaled back from what it was. So, but it's still, again, it's anytime you start with a presumption of no harm, people who own those water rights are going to get upset about that. So
right.
we'll see what happens. Definitely watch it close. I know there's a lot of people that have conservation project, restoration projects ready to go that are holding right now on them because they want to see how this happen, how it ends up falling out before they start putting shovels in the ground. They just don't know what the litigation landscape is going to look like. So there's stuff that could be done that's not being done right now because they're waiting to see what happens with this. So.
Good point. And the other thing is, thank you guys for the support with the forum. The forum looks like a really good turnout. We have probably 250 people coming on Tuesday, a little less on Wednesday. So it's going to be a well-attended, pretty robust program. So I think it's going to work out really well. So thanks for your support again.
Anybody besides you from the chapter going?
Chris
Chris
is
is?
going, and there's Don Logelin from Pikes Peak is also a sponsor this year. So at least there'll be a couple TU sponsors in the room and trying to build that recreational piece to the whole forum participation.
Great.
Yeah.
Keep
Anybody
track of
else have
those
anything to
hours,
add?
everybody. All those little things.
Yeah. Anybody else have anything to add? Seeing none, I guess we will adjourn the meeting.
Great.
Thank you,
Hey,
everybody.
thanks, everybody.
Yep,
Thanks,
covered-
everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Yep, we
Thank
covered a
you.
lot of
Good
ground.
night.
Thanks, everybody.
Night.
Take care.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night. Oh, come on.